gosh. Dukes, we're on the internet. We are on the internet, and it it's gonna have like a pretty significant delay. It's usually YouTube. Yeah, YouTube usually codes in like a 20 to 30 second delay, which is good. Yeah, I know. I guess we would need to
Dukes,
figure
we're
that
on
out.
the internet. We are on the internet.
Yeah, it's you can probably hear us 30 seconds ago talking over there. Um,
It's gonna have like a pretty
this looks
significant delay.
good.
It's usually
One
YouTube.
thing.
Yeah, YouTube usually codes in like a 20 to 30 second delay,
Let's see.
which is good.
Like I would let's. You can hear it.
Yeah, I know. I guess we would need to figure
Yeah.
that out. The internet.
Yeah, totally.
We
Um,
are on the
so
internet.
let's see.
Yeah, it's you can
We
probably
should
hear us
identify
30
our
seconds
sort
ago
of talking
talking over
heads
there.
marks. So like
It's gonna
sit
have like
up
this looks
and pull
good.
back. That's pretty good.
One thing,
If you can kind of sit right where you're at, that's a good spot. And I'll try to do the same thing.
you can hear
Um,
it. Yeah, I know. I guess we would need
we're
to.
good. I'm going to take us off live because now this is now making me
We
crazy,
should
but
identify
it
our
works.
sort of talking
Well, Jesse, here we are, live on the internet. Hmm. No, we can't. Yes, even running downstairs to fetch ties is. Uh, hmm. We do. I'm also getting a note from. This is good. We're getting some helpful feedback from the. Let's see. No sound on Jesse's side. This is the sort of thing that I was worried about. It was working before. I think this is. Yeah, I think this is probably an issue with. Yes, I bet. Jesse, try to say something now.
I'm now saying something. Nobody
Oh,
heard what I had to say about my wardrobe
This is a
malfunction.
problem. I bet the internet can hear you now, but I cannot hear you now.
Interesting.
This is interesting. We had this
It's
working earlier,
it's
and I'm not
essential
quite
that
sure
you
why
hear
we
me
aren't
and the
working
internet hear me.
now. But let's see. Internet world has is okay. Justin says that things are working at the moment. This is going to be a really tough show if I can't hear you, however.
You can't hear me?
So
So,
I'm going to try to do the thing that we did earlier with the monitoring. And I will
yeah.
just deal with some odd
What Chris Bagg needs to do, he can't hear me right now, so I could say whatever I wanted about him. But what he needs to do is turn off the OBS monitor, which is what we did earlier when we had this problem. I'm chatting him.
I can hear you now. I can also hear myself now, which is a little annoying, but it's not too bad. As long as I pretty much just keep focusing on what you're saying, I think things are going to be all right.
All right.
Hey world, can you hear both of us? Nice. Jesse is saying that he will live scribe Jesse. That'll work.
He's gonna live scribe me and then share it with you so that you can hear what I have to say.
Yeah, that'll
be great.
That'll definitely be working. But I think that we are okay. Let's see. Now
Well, keep working on trying to turn down your monitor feed, because I know when you hear yourself in a delay, you start to sound kind of drunk. Is the effect, and you start to slur out your words, and it can be tempting to kind of start playing with the delay.
Yeah, that's true. I wonder. Let's see. I wonder if I can turn down my own. If I can turn down the monitor, I think that might. But then I won't be able to hear you.
The monitor, you should be able to hear me through the Zoom.
Yeah.
And ideally, you would hear me through the Zoom and not the monitor, because the monitor is going to be the one that's delayed. Mm-hmm. Anyway, I'll just.
There is a way. I'm worried that by turning down this, it's also going to turn down the general output to the world. We will
try it. Because I don't. It shouldn't. If it's a monitor, it shouldn't do that. A monitor, at least monitor in studio parlance, is something for the engineer to hear, or something for the talent to hear, and not something for the world to hear. But who knows if it works that way? I'm just gonna start explaining what's going on, and I'll let you keep troubleshooting that in the background.
Well, I'm sure that the issue here was I jumped on another phone call right before this. And I'm a little worried that by switching my output when I did that I messed something else up. But
very possibly. But Justin still hears us, right?
Yeah. And I'm getting also tech help from my sister, which is awesome, and very excited to be doing this. All right, let's go for it. Dukes, why are we wearing ties?
Because it's draft day. It's a very important draft day is when Upper Middle Brow selects roughly the next 4 series, which has translated to roughly 12 things to read, although it wouldn't necessarily have to be that, and translates to roughly 24 episodes, although in the last case it was 25. But and the way that we do that is you and I will each propose 3 series of things to read or look at next. We will propose that, and then we do a kind of ranked choice voting, where I will get to rank your selections in order of my preference, and then you will get to rank my selections in order of your preference. Once all that is revealed, then we need to simply add up the rankings, and we'll have the next 24 or so episodes of Upper Middle Brow. So it's very exciting. It's what we're going to talk about next.
And who are we? Like, what are we doing in general? What is this whole thing that we
This is Upper Middle Brow.
Do?
Upper Middle Brow is a podcast about popular works of cultural production, mostly books up to this point, but it doesn't have to be books, that we think are high craft, or at least are worth discussing the craft of. So what we have done up to this point usually is read books and divide them up into 2 episodes and talk about them as we go. And we seem to both gravitate towards talking about the literary craft, as opposed to, other types of cultural production podcasts where people might talk more about how the book makes them feel, or how or whether they like the characters. I mean, those things might come up too, but I think both of us are writers, and so we find ourselves talking about what the author is doing and why, and whether that is working for us, and sometimes getting to rather arcane, in-depth analysis of different kinds of literary techniques and things like that. And then there's also a lot of inside jokes. There's a certain amount of digression. There's a certain amount of improv. There are some funny voices, and there's tremendous entertainment to be had by anybody. As Leah Jones says, it's a fun book club vibe, but if you didn't read the book, you're still welcome, and you'll still have a good time. Well, our first episode came out in November. And I don't remember when we did our first taping, but yeah, I want to say it was July. So yeah, I would say our first taping was over a year ago. Yep. That remains to be seen.
And okay, I'm just going to be dealing with a little bit of echo today, which I think is fine. Well, yeah, everybody who couldn't hear me, what I was saying was that the thing that we're going to do today is we're going to come up with basically the next year of content, the next year of episodes for Upper Middle Brow. We have gotten through 26 episodes over the course of the past year, and we still have one group of books left from our last draft. We would have made it on time, but we decided to insert a Neal Stephenson section where we ended up doing, I think, 7 episodes of Neal Stephenson. Is that correct? 2 Snow Crash, Zodiac, yeah. Cryptonomic, 9 episodes.
Well, we had already done Snow Crash was our pilot episode, and then we did 3 more books. So yeah, so there were 2 for Snow Crash, and then 2 plus 2 plus 3 equals 7, 9, 9 Neil Stevenson episodes, plus a bonus Neil Stevenson episode
That's
with
right,
our
with
friend
Justin
Justin
Wright,
Wright about the
who is here with
pedagogy of
us
the
in
Diamond
chat.
Age. Yep.
I do believe we've got about 5 people watching, which is awesome. Thank you guys so much for coming out and helping us stumble through our technology. But yeah, what the next roughly hour, I think, is going to look like is we are going to, I think we're going to go one at a time, and each of us has a group of 3 books that we're going to talk about, and we do some voting. Please feel free to heckle or say that you are interested in a particular book or there's something that that you're really excited about. And
heckling, encouragement, cheering, lobbying, all of those things are very welcome.
Yeah.
And Chris, we're waiting for you. You're gonna give us your first series. Have you found a way to share the worksheet? I mean, one thing we could do is just make this a public Google Doc and put it in the chat too.
I think what I am going to do is I don't have a clever way of doing it, but I think the thing to do is that we should grab our little group of 3 books and then we will just post it into the YouTube chat. I think is the way.
Okay, I will be live updating this next series worksheet though, and
nice.
I am going to go ahead and put the Google Doc with a viewer only link into the chat right now, so you can follow along in Google Docs if you like to do that.
Nice. Okay. Well, should we get into it?
Yeah. Yes. What is your proposal number 1 for the next series?
My proposal number 1, I'm going to copy the series title in first, and the series title is called Yesterday Never Dies. And our 3 books that we are going to be considering for this one are Bleak House by Charles Dickens, Emma by Jane Austen, and Madame Bovary by Gustave Flaubert. And there is a tie-in here to modern day. All 3 of these have excellent modern TV or film adaptations. The Bleak House miniseries is amazing. Emma has been turned into a bunch of movies, including Clueless, which I thought would be really fun to revisit. And Madame Bovary has a not very well-reviewed 2015 feature film. It is always fun to throw in a few stinkers as well. So I thought that part of this series could be reading some classics, and some of the classics that maybe don't have as much attention to the other aspects of, Dickens. Like Bleak House is a little bit deep on the depth chart for Dickens. Emma is probably not as high up there as some of the other stuff. And I'm suddenly terrified that I've picked the wrong author, but I'm pretty sure I'm in the right place.
I think so.
Yes.
I
just had this terrifying moment where I was like, oh God, maybe it's one of the Brontes. But then
who wrote Emma?
For sure, it is Jane Austen.
Yeah, I'm always confused by it because I think that there is a Jane Austen film, a Merchant Ivory production that stars Emma Thompson, but that film is not Emma, which I think actually might have, I don't know, Gwyneth Paltrow or there's something like that that's confusing out there. I've never read any of these books, so that's very, very exciting. And how many total episodes do you think this is? 2 episodes per book?
I do think this is 2 episodes per book. Bleak House is a big one. But it is also one, it's Dickens. So, I mean, it's big, but once you kind of get going, it tends to roll along. And I think the other ones are definitely 2 episoders.
So I'm just going to note 6 total episodes then in the next series workshop. Yeah. All right. Well, we'll have time to lobby and talk after we get the series out. So I don't have any follow-up questions right now. I may have some for you once I see the full picture of your proposals. But I'm going to give you my first nomination. Now I have to find. Okay. The title of my first optional series, or my first series, is Foodie Films.
Excellent.
And this one is going to include 6 films. Each one will be 1 episode plus a bonus proposed live screening / live event 7th film.
Oh,
So
gosh,
it'll
this
actually be
is great.
7 total episodes with a live event. We'll have to figure out how to do that. We'll have to figure out if it's legal to do it. We could always just tell people to watch it and start at the exact same time and then, sort of tweet at each other or whatever as we're watching. That's what historians at the movies. But the foodie films are, I will type them in, Babette's Feast.
Excellent. One I've never heard, but I've heard so much about.
The Cook, the Thief, his wife, and her lover. I have also not seen Babette's Feast. I have seen The Cook, the Thief, his wife, and her lover. I don't remember who the directors are of either of those two, actually. Tampopo, which is a Japanese film from the 80s, which I've also not seen. Eat, Drink, Man, Woman, which is an Ang Lee film. And Mostly Martha, which I don't know anything about. I can't even remember when it was made. And the final of the viewed films is Big Night.
Love Big Night. Yes. I would be so excited. That is such a great upper middle brow pick. That one really sits in that place of very successful and also really high craft.
And the brothers in that film are sort of upper middle browsers themselves, right? They're trying to do something that is both popular and crafty. And then the live screening, however we're able to pull that off, whether we just invite some people over to Dungeon Bag and watch it on your giant TV, or whether we do it at a theater somewhere if we can get the rights, will be of Sideways.
Oh, excellent. One of our a film that you and I quote pretty regularly.
Sort of part of the Duke's Bag origin story.
Yeah, totally. It's definitely part of our particular zeitgeist, though there's got to be a different word for that. We need a small version of zeitgeist.
So that's foodie films, man.
I like foodie films. That is exciting. Now we gotta get some more chatting going. Come on, people. What do you think? What do you think about our choices so far? Jump in here. Let us know how we are doing. Okay. My series number 2, the title of it is called High Score. And the books that we would be considering are as follows. Oh, I see what's happening. Okay. I need to put this in this format. Okay. So the 3 books: Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow by Gabrielle Zevin. The Peripheral by William Gibson, a novel that got turned into a, I think, okay Amazon Prime TV show. I watched it last fall, and I need to reserve judgment a little bit, but it was compelling at least. And then the 3rd book, the video game classic Ready Player One by Ernest Cline, and maybe even we would fit in Ready Player 2, which I haven't read yet, but I hear is pretty good. So I've really wanted to do a series on video games, and so this is the one that's kind of closest to the classic upper middle brow series of the past year, where we aim for literary and we end up in sci-fi.
Yes. So I was listening. I was not updating the worksheet. So let me go back, navigate back to the worksheet. All right. Tomorrow, Tomorrow, and Tomorrow, which you also recommended for the summer reading episode.
Yep.
Peripheral, William Gibson, which I have read and I do like a lot.
Oh, interesting. I'm interested to hear what you had to say about that.
I didn't watch the series though. And I have not read Ready Player One. I read another Ernest Cline book, which was also kind of sort of intriguingly about kind of video game culture. I forget what it was called. It was an alien invasion book. High scores. So how many episodes do you think this will be?
I think this is going to be 6 to 7, depending on if we do Ready Player 2.
Okay. So Ready Player Two would be a single episode, perhaps.
I think so. You know,
Those
I
books
think it
read
might
pretty
be one
fast,
that we
right?
kind of maybe touch on and keep moving. But yeah.
And I should say, I probably implied this before, but I actually think Foodie Films would be 7 episodes because of the 6 movies plus the live event. All right, yeah, that is high score. Moving right along, I'm gonna give you my next series. I have to find. Okay, so this one is called Lower Upper Middle Brow. And it is AKA The Beginnings. And let me type that into the next series. So let's see. Lower Upper Middle Brow, which makes me chuckle. Beginnings. So this one, well, and I'll just say one thing that unites these are books, and one of the things that unites them is that all 3 of these books were written by authors who might be on the very cusp of upper middle brow, but we might not always find them there. In fact, one of the authors we have in fact maligned in a prior episode, which we don't like to do very often, but we could not resist in this particular case. But I think we might find each of these books kind of started a franchise. And I think we might find that the first book in the franchise might actually have some real craft or innovation or something admirable that then maybe was lost in the franchise. So I think that's something that they have in common. So the first book in that series is First Blood by David Morrell, which is the book that it's the book that was adapted into the first Rambo movie, Rambo First Blood, and then of course touched off the very popular series of films. So First Blood, David Morrell. I've not read it. The second book is The Hunt for Red October by Tom Clancy.
Marvelous. I would so overjoy return to The Hunt for Red October.
Did you read it?
I have read it, but I read it, I mean, at this point, 30 plus years ago. Like, I read it when
I think I was 11 or something. Yeah,
something like
exactly.
that.
Yeah, summer vacation, age 11 or something. It was this
very strange stretch of movie going. I remember it was the summer that my parents took us to see The Princess Bride and The Hunt for Red October within a span of a few weeks. So my brain has kind of layered those 2 movies on top of each other. I mean, who knows if that's correct? Who knows if they actually came back in the same year? Somebody go and find out for us. But my brain thinks that they both came out in like 1985 or 86, somewhere in there.
See, I think The Hunt for Red October was a few years later. I think the movie was probably more like 91, but maybe you were reading the book, which was published in 1985 or 1986. Fun fact, the book was published by a weird, like, academic press. And it wasn't even a particularly well-known one. It was something like the Naval History Institute or something like that. And it was not I believe many major publishing houses passed up on it, and it was not expected to be a hit at all. So intriguing. I don't think that it led to many sequels in the Jack Ryan series that I suspect if you read them, you'd feel like you were reading the same book over and over again, just kind of set in a different place,
Yes, 100%.
But I think the first one might have something, I think there might be something interesting there. Certainly Clancy is good at plot, right? And he's good at sort of Cold War paranoia. The third one is Agent to the Stars, which was the debut novel of John Scalzi. And I almost picked Red Shirts, but I actually reread Red Shirts recently enough that I just didn't want to read it again. Even though it's quite good, I just felt too familiar with it. So Agent from the Stars was his first novel. It was self-published, and it's what launched his career. And I like Scalzi a lot. I don't know if I would consider everything that he does upper middle brow. I think sometimes he's a very clever entertainer. But I do think this is a wonderful debut novel, and it shows a lot of his strengths and a lot of his fascinations. So that is lower upper middle brow, aka the beginnings.
Excellent. I'm really excited to read some Scalzi because you've talked a lot about him, and he's kind of a blank spot for me. But I think Red Shirts sounds amazing. It sounds like a really fun book, and it's definitely right up my alley. And so I'm looking forward to getting into some of his other stuff.
Yeah, you might enjoy Red Shirts even more than this one, to be honest. But I didn't want to read it again. So, and also we were on the theme of starting the franchise, and Agent to the Stars is what starts the franchise. And I'm sure it's available. I believe he published it on his website as a PDF. I don't even know if you can find a hard copy. The audiobook is read by Will Wheaton, from
Excellent.
Star Trek, and he does a wonderful job.
I bet he does.
And so I think that's the definitive version, John Scalzi. So that's JPD's second suggestion.
Got it. My third series, I am titling My Sour Culture. There's a little bit of a joke to pick up in there. This one are books that I really know very little about. I kind of went digging for stuff that felt kind of maybe in the Colson Whitehead Parable of the Sower, like kind of the books that we've been doing recently that I've really been enjoying. But the three books that we have lined up here: The Sellout by Paul Beatty. Hard for me to pass up a book that is set in a town called Dickens. The Sympathizer, by Viet Nguyen. A very interesting setup where a North Vietnamese spy heads to California to gather intel on the South Vietnamese government in exile in Southern California, which just sounds like an incredible setup. And Milkman by Anna Burns, which is set in the Troubles in North Ireland.
I don't know any of those books.
Yeah, I tried to go with stuff that I was totally unfamiliar with, but had gotten pretty good press in the last decade, and generally had some success, but also clearly hit our usual high craft and literary aspirations.
Is Sour Culture a reference to the Milkman?
Both Milkman and all three of the books, as far as I can tell, have some degree of grudging self-referentiality with the protagonist's primary culture.
Justin mentioned Fall, Dodge, and Hill, which is a wonderful book. But I think we agreed that we didn't agree, but I think both of us want a little bit of break from Neil Stephenson. But I think I agree that that's a great selection. And if Upper Middle Brow survives, I hope we'll get there.
I put a request for that I was trying to fill out the group of three books that we're doing next: Neuromancer.
Yeah.
And come on, what's my other one?
Neuromancer. Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep?
Dream of Electric
And actually, but one of the things I need to ask you tonight is which one do I start reading first? I don't know.
Let's go with Neuromancer. Let's reboot there.
All right, you heard it here live, folks.
On Instagram saying, or on Twitter saying, hey, I need a third book here to complete this series. And I got a large number of people suggesting that I read Snow Crash.
Yes. Well, it's not a bad suggestion.
Nope.
Or at least it wouldn't be if we had not already read it. But it's not like you required people to be familiar with the podcast when you asked for suggestions.
True.
You didn't assign that particular homework. Yeah, there's some interesting books.
That's My Sour Culture.
Yep. Excellent. And we got some interesting suggestions on social media too, on that particular Twitter thread too, that I'm excited about. All right. So my third one, I don't have a clever name for it. And it's probably the weirdest suggestion I've made up to this point. in this process. Basically, this is a suggestion of a series of classic audio documentaries. And, you know, I am a professional podcast producer, radio producer. There was a podcasting boom that started roughly in 2014, and just about all of these, but I think one or maybe two were all produced before that boom. And it is a little bit of a response to my sense that many people who have participated in the narrative podcast boom don't really know the history of the audio of the audio medium as well as I would like, which is a, you know, kind of cranky old man get off my lawn kind of thing to think and feel. And I definitely, you know, I'm an old man in training, so that's part of it. But I actually think that it would be, these are all things that have inspired me in my career. I don't feel that my career as an audio producer, I've lived up to the inspiration that I've gotten from these things. And there's a little bit of sadness, but I got time. And I think I would really, really enjoy sharing them with you, both as a friend, but also because I love you have a tremendous capacity for analysis, and sometimes you can help me see things that I'm not seeing. And I think it'd be really fun for you to see some of these or listen to some of these inspirational works in my life, and for me to hear what you think of them. And also, we're operating in this sort of chat podcast space. So I thought it might actually, if we listened to some of these documentaries and talked about them, we might get some attention from people who are more interested in audio documentary too. So it might kind of get our podcast into the ears of some people who are maybe not famous or popular, but are kind of influential, you know, sort of the velvet underground of podcast criticism, you know, the first one is a audio documentary maker named Chris Brooks, who, and this is actually kind of what inspired. He's Canadian, and he died this spring. I think he was in his 70s. And he made what I think is the greatest audio documentary ever, called A Map of the Sea. And it's only about 25 minutes. So I also want to throw in another one he made called Spools of Time, which is heavily influenced by Proust's book about, you know, what's it called, In Search of Lost Time or In Search of Lost Memory. So that would be the first one. The second one are some classics from the late 80s and early 90s. Dave Isay, Sound Portraits, is the production shop. And one is Witness to an Execution. And the other is Ghetto Life 101, which was one of the very first sort of audio diary documentary projects, at least of the contemporary era. Then I need to fill this one out a little bit better, but I will in time. I'm just calling this one Old Europe, but I want to listen to some work by a German radio producer named Peter Leonard Braun, who made German audio documentaries in German in the 1950s and 60s. And he has a wonderful one called Catch Can, which is about professional wrestling. And then there's a British maker a little bit later, like 70s and 80s, named Piers Plowright, who made some wonderful things. I think he was the one who worked on an audio documentary about an English country pub, and basically just wired the entire pub with dozens of microphones, including microphones in the urinals too. And I've never actually heard that. I've just sort of heard the legend of it. So that's Old Europe. Then a couple classics from This American Life. One is Running After Antelope, which I think was that's a Scott Carrier story and very influential. And the other one is 129 Cars, which is more recent, but I think one of the greatest documentaries about kind of this stage of capitalism that exists without ever using the word capitalism or oppression. Then Love and Radio, a pair from them, The Wisdom of J Thunderbolt. J Thunderbolt, I believe, is a pimp. I don't know if that's the polite term, a sex trafficker, or he runs strip clubs. I'm not sure if he is actually a sex trafficker or if he merely legally runs strip clubs, but he's in that trade, and the other is The Exotic Adrian Street, which is also about a professional wrestler. I don't know if you've listened to Love and Radio.
Oh yeah.
I think they're completely unique, right? And often it's narratives about characters you feel ambivalent about morally. Characters who have positive and negative qualities, real people, I should say. And also, I just think Nick Vanderkolk, who's the creator of Love and Radio, came up with a documentary aesthetic that is it's unique. Nothing sounds like Love and Radio.
Yeah, I agree. It's a strange but wonderful listening experience every single time.
Yep. And I've kind of fallen off, although maybe this would be an opportunity for me to fall back on it. And the last one would be one of the more recent serial series by one of my favorite people and makers, We Were Three, which was reported and written by Nancy Updike. And that actually listened to that when I was visiting you last fall. So that is I'm just going to call it classic audio documentary, even though some of them are a little bit more recent.
Instant classics.
Some of them are instant classics. Well, and I think also I purposely took us into this era and show the only thing that really feels like the sort of podcast that's being funded and made today is the last one. And I think it's one of the best examples of that I'm using. But we're in a moment where audio documentary and podcasting, at least in North America, really, to me, is more heavily influenced by kind of a magazine writing aesthetic than a documentary aesthetic, which isn't necessarily bad. That's sort of the This American Life, and it can be really, really wonderful. But so part of the reason I chose that one last is to kind of sort of set up some contrasts between what was done in the past, what's done in Europe, and what is ascendant today.
This could be hard.
I know.
These are some excellent choices to be had here. Do we want to toss anything to our intrepid listeners? Anything? Do we want to hand over any narrative control to them? Do we want to give them some way of being involved in the voting process?
I think for this particular one, I think since we didn't discuss that beforehand, I think our listeners are kibitzing. They are the peanut gallery, they're the hecklers, they're the lobbyists, but we are the executives. I think in the future, I would be very much up for what you're describing. And I was thinking about coming up with a kind of ranked choice voting method that would allow the listeners to do a kind of tiebreaker. But I'm not ready to relinquish the control just yet.
At some point down the road, we can do this on Twitch, and we can do things where it's like, hey, if you give us a $10 cheer, we will do anything you want.
Yeah. Well, I was also noting that I think the order that we're gonna do these series would be Bag, Dukes, Bag. And that, as I was saying that out loud to myself, I was like, oh, that sounds like some lucky lady's ideal weekend. Then occurred to me that perhaps we might consider a premium, Patreon membership, sort of the 10,000 level. We're talking about different kinds of funding of podcasting this day. People have talked about all crowdfunding and all sorts of things. And has anybody tried, escort servicing?
Or yeah, when you say crowdfunded, you mean a crowd of one.
Indeed, yeah. And now, I'm not actually proposing that we use sex work as a way of raising money for upper middle brow. Although I do feel like you and I, we could potentially offer a premier pledge if we ever were to go about this, where maybe we go on a hike, or we spend a weekend with somebody, or we take somebody on a vacation, or we take somebody surfing, or something like that.
For Jenny the right G price. From Bend has showed up in chat. If you haven't noticed, I think it's pretty easy to see when Jenny G from Bend shows up in chat.
Yeah, some all caps action.
Yeah, there's more capitals, and the number of capitals and exclamation points tends to outnumber the lowercase letters.
Well, don't make Jenny self-conscious. Welcome, Jenny. We were maybe going to be joined by Leah Jones, who I believe is in Tel Aviv.
Leah did get back to us and said, "Oh, good Lord, I hope to be asleep by that point."
Yeah, because it's like 3 a.m. or something like that right now.
Early in Tel Aviv.
All right. Yeah, I'm gonna do an all caps chat back at Jenny.
Nice, nice. She will appreciate that for sure. So the next thing that happens, watchers, is I believe the way that we do this is that the person who proposed the series doesn't get to vote, but the other person gets to assign a value of, I believe, 2 stars or 3 stars. And then Dukes compiles the form and reveals it, and we know what we're doing.
Actually, I came up with a layer to add a little bit more drama, which is that we will each announce our 2-star pick, and then we will announce our 3-star pick.
I love it. So we need to take a little. We need like a little soft shoe music or something like that next time.
Yeah,
next time I'll figure out. This was enough technical stuff for this time. We will. Do we want to music next time?
Yeah. No. The technical. I mean, I sent you my screenshots. But I guess that was a little bit too challenging. Does anybody want to do any lobbying while we? Oh, I put them in Dropbox and emailed you the link, or I think I emailed you the link. Yeah. Did I? I thought I did that.
Probably.
To Chris, images for draft night. I put the 2 series here, and there's a link. Yeah, no. I sent you that. I sent you that on live TV. Sorry about that, buddy. That was a little much. Does anybody want to do any lobbying? Do you want to do any lobbying before we
listeners, anything you want, anything that you're like really saying you want to put in a play, put in a make your case for?
Justin was very compelled that I said that I was intrigued, that I wanted to hear you as a friend talk about these works of art that had inspired me. That was that sort of sentimental appeal worked with Blair Justin Fireright, which makes sense. He's got a soft spot for friendship.
He sure does. Yeah, which is good. We all should have that same soft spot.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm closing tabs wildly because I can't find my YouTube. Lost it. So I'm trying to see if there are any chats.
It really helps to have 3 computers running at the same time. That's a really great way to help keep track of all the tabs that you have open.
Yeah. Justin Reich says audio docs FTW. Okay. What's FTW? For the win. Yes. Okay. He's excited about audio docs. That's exciting.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know. We can just get right into it. I think we are counting a little bit of a delay. So maybe right now, Jenny G is like, my God, I'm lobbying for my favorite thing, and we're not going to see it. It's going to be too late.
I think we've probably built in enough vamping time. I think we can probably get to the first.
Well, I should say, any question? Are there any questions? Do we have any questions for one another?
Let's see. Do I have any questions for you?
We did a lot of chatting while we were going.
Yeah, we sure did, but that's okay.
I have one question for you, which is, have you read Emma and Madame Bovary?
I have read Emma. I have not read Madame Bovary in any sort of way that I would be proud to admit. It was definitely on a syllabus in college, and I touched upon it, but I think it was like sophomore year survey of, European literature, and I didn't get as close as I wanted to. One of the reasons that Madame Bovary is on here, it was a suggestion and really fit nicely with what I was getting after, which is like I want some of those big classics that also have like some real contemporary appeal, which I think you can see in the fact that they've gotten made into other stuff. The Bleak House miniseries is just top drawer. It's absolutely wonderful, and I'd be really excited to read the book and revisit the series as well. But yeah, I haven't done Madame Bovary. It's kind of a blank spot in my literature, and I would be excited to unblank it.
Yeah, me neither. My only real reference for it was that there was some film, I want to say it was called Mr. Wrong, that starred Ellen DeGeneres and Bill Pullman before Ellen DeGeneres came out as gay, and they were, I want to say that they were engaged to be married, and then Ellen DeGeneres was trying to impress Bill Pullman's mom, and they were playing charades, and she got assigned Madame Bovary, and she did a sounds like, and was trying to do sounds like ovary,
Oh
and
my.
like, and it was brilliant because it was like, oh, I totally would have gotten that, but it was very frustrating that despite her very Ellen DeGeneres physical humor, like indicating where her ovaries were, nobody was able to figure out.
It's like, you keep pointing to your side abs.
Yeah, side abs. Exactly. Stomach, belly, madam. And she even had madam. So they were sort of like madam stomach, madam abdominals, madam
appendix, madam appendix.
Yeah. It was a good moment. It was a good moment. Somebody could look up what the name of that actual. I want to say the movie was called Mr. Wrong, and yeah, not entirely sure if I'm right about that or not. Yeah, all right. Well, I'm ready for my 2-star pick. I'm ready to give you mine, and I think that I go first.
I think you go first too. Yeah, correct.
Yeah. So let me look at the next series workshop again. My 2-star pick is Yesterday Never Dies.
Okay, so the classics are probably in.
Yeah, extremely likely.
Extremely likely. So you hear that, everybody? The classics are in. So
yeah, I wanted some upper middle classics.
Nice.
So I'm excited about this, and I think this will give us some juice. You know, there's a podcast out there. There are a number of sort of great books podcasts out there that read books like this, and up to this point, I feel like we've been the pretty good books podcast. So now we can swing with the big boys.
Okay, I am prepared for my 2-star pick.
All right, let's hear it.
All right, so I am going to. All right, I'm realizing that since we're on a shared, we're on like a shared.
Are you shared on the dock?
We're like I would definitely be like, it's a little bit of a spoiler if I build up some suspense, but my cursor is hovering over the field that I'm going to put the 2 stars in. So I just need to like. I think the thing to do here is to put 2 stars somewhere else and then copy it really quickly and drop it into the area.
Because like all the like Supreme Court reporters are like hitting refresh on this Google Doc over and over again.
Totally.
To see, they're gonna call their editor back in New York and be like, "We figured it out, Chris Baggs, 2-star pick."
I know.
Quick.
I know, and then like,
we're gonna
you
be the Washington Post
the cursor moving around on the spreadsheet. So I'm just going to go quickly, and I'm going to give 2 stars to Foodie Films.
Yes.
Because I think that would be a really fun departure from kind of the thing that we usually do here at Upper Middlebrow, and do some movies. And I really can't pass up the possibility of doing Sideways alongside you.
And maybe we can also work on our pitch for Sideways too, which I still think is a wonderful idea that needs to be made by Alexander Payne.
Okay.
Is that his name? Alexander Payne?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So it's time for bags. We're doing Dukes Bag Dukes.
Oh, Dukes Bag Dukes. Okay.
Yeah. So 3-star pick.
My 3-star pick. So yeah, I think I'm just gonna go quickly and say that I'm going to give 3 stars to classic audio documentaries. I think that will be so much fun, and there are some things that I really want to read in there, and listen to, and some things I'm a little familiar with, but most of them I'm not. And I think I'll probably reread Hunt for Red October and some John Scalzi on the side, but I'm really excited about branching out into some other stuff, and I bet our listeners would also be excited about some of that.
Well, hold off on the Scalzi and because I'll recycle that one potentially into our next draft, and maybe
come back around at some point.
And maybe because we have some films, we might even be able to speed up our cadence a little bit, because it doesn't take as much time to watch a movie as it does to read half of a novel too. So that's something we could discuss as well. I mean, it's your choice. If you want to read those books, of course, go ahead. But I like the idea of recycling that pick for a future draft.
Totally.
All right. So my 3-star pick Let me look at these again. I'm gonna give 3 stars to My Sour Culture.
Nice.
I mean, I like all of these, but I've read The Peripheral, and I feel like we've done a lot of easy books,
Yep.
and these look a little bit challenging. I've read, I think, a short story by Viet Nguyen. Otherwise, I'm unfamiliar with both writers, and I just love the idea of branching out a little bit more.
Yeah,
And
I think it's
and
gonna be different, and I think we're gonna get exposed to some really good stuff. I'd been wanting to do Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow for a while. I just finished it when I was in Iceland, and it's good, but it didn't end up rising to kind of the like level of goodness that I really wanted it to be. I think Ready Player One is another really good book and a really good movie. Um, and I'm interested in The Peripheral because I want to see how it matches up to the weirdness of the TV show. But if you kind of think about that series, you and I have read a lot of the books in it. So I
yeah.
think that maybe doing some stuff where that is new to both of us is probably a really good idea.
So we're gonna do this in order of bag one, Dukes 1, Dukes 2, bag 2. So that would mean basically, let me see if I'm gonna quickly do this in my head. Um, bag 1 is My Sour Culture. So when we're done with our current series, we'll do The Sellout by Paul Beatty, The Sympathizer by Viet Nguyen, and Milkman by Anna Barnes. Then we will do classic audio documentary, Chris Brooks, Dave Isay, Old Europe, Running After Antelope, and 129 Cars from This American Life, Love and Radio, and We Were Three by Nancy Updike. And then we will do Foodie Films, which will be great because it'll be kind of like winter.
Yep.
It's a great time to watch Foodie Films. Um, Babette's Feast, The Cook, the Thief, His Wife and Her Lover, Tampopo, Eat, Drink, Man, Woman, Mostly Martha, Big Night, and then live screening of Sideways. We'll figure out the logistics of that. We'll figure out whether it's legal. And then the last thing we will do is Yesterday Never Dies, wrapping it up with some great books, Bleak House, Emma, and Madame Bovary. And thanks to Karen for fact checking that it was in fact Mr. Wrong. And it was made in 1996, which sounds about right. And that would have been a very young Ellen, but that was, I believe, she came out as gay shortly after that. So this was when she still played kind of like young bachelorettes in romantic comedies, which is kind of a funny thing to imagine. But she was good.
I love that we're probably going to be hitting those sort of big books in like March or April. Like,
Yeah.
Like March, exactly the time of year when you want to be reading Bleak House. The
Yeah.
first the first page is this like amazing paean to mud. It goes on for a while. It really talks about all of the mud in the street nearby the that particular London Stock Exchange that really features prominently in Bleak House. And it's definitely a wet beginning, so it'll fit really nicely for Portland in March.
Yeah. Yeah, the optional series title could be Yesterday Never Dies / Mud. Mud season. Well, I don't know. Any regrets, Bag? I think this is pretty terrific. I'm pretty excited about this.
I'm really excited. And let's see. Will your fans know like roughly when you're doing things? So slow reading fans can get ahead with reading things they've never read. Yes, Jenny G and Bend. I think we've actually built this pretty nicely so that there is going to be a lot of alternative media in the middle. But if you were to go ahead and procure either in digital or real format, those 6 books, you can probably start getting started on those. And then the movies and the audio documentaries. Where can people find those audio documentaries, Jesse? What's an easy way to get those?
Gosh, we'll have to get back to you on that. Some of them you can just Google. I think what we should do is within the next week or so, publish this list to our website so that people can start reading ahead. Normally, we've just been announcing them a week or 2 in advance, but we could publish the list. And during that time, I will try to track down ways of listening to these audio documentaries. I think most of them are pretty easy to find on the web. Excuse me, a couple of them may be a little bit hard. The old Europe ones, I might have to do some digging. I might have to find somebody who like taped them off the BBC in 1983 and has helped, carried that tape around in a shoebox for the last 5 years or something else. But yeah, so we'll give you lots of heads up. We haven't been great about that up to this point. And while in the spirit of that, we can just tell you that the next thing we're going to do is in fact Neuromancer. That'll probably come out in, I'm going to say, about a month. Mm-hmm. And then shortly after that, Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep by Philip K. Dick. And do you want to announce the third one that you swapped out?
Yeah, we're going to do Forever War by Joe Haldeman.
Super fun, Silver Age sci-fi book. So, I'm sure he was rubbing shoulders with Larry Niven in the 1970s.
Is Larry Niven still alive? Can we get Larry Niven? Is that possible?
I don't know. I'm sure someone out there knows the answer.
Yeah.
I'm sure we can figure it out. Did he? There's also I believe there's an actor named David Niven, and I don't know if they're related or not. Larry Niven. I think Larry Niven must be dead because he was in his 50s in the No.
Still alive?
He's alive. He's 85 years old. All right. So listeners, if anybody has IMDb Pro, send us Larry Niven's representation, and we will invite Larry Niven to guest and talk about something on Upper Middlebrow. Yeah, along with Stephen Shaw.
Talk about the Barsoom Scoop.
The Barsoom Scoop. The other thing you could do, listeners, is recommend other guests who maybe we ought to consider too, or other guest themes. We're also going to have our good friend Justin on again pretty soon to talk about books and movies and such that have teachers as protagonists. That was inspired by Project Hail Mary, which has a teacher as a protagonist. And the fact that we like teachers.
While we have this somewhat captive audience, we would like to ask all of you guys, we are still a young podcast. We have listeners in the 10s. We would love to maybe get to listeners in the 20s. If you enjoy Upper Middlebrow, please, the best thing you can do is just share it with a friend. Say like, hey, I really like these guys. This is really fun. They're kind of wacky. They tend to talk too much. But if you can help us out by passing the podcast on to somebody that you think would also enjoy it, my God, that would help us so much. That's really...
And actually, if you do that, you'll be entered into a drawing. The first 10 people who do that and prove that they're going to do it will be entered into a drawing to win this storied Bluetooth speaker, which we will mail to you.
There are two of them up for grabs.
So what you have to do is somehow
Bluetooth
demonstrate
speakers.
that you heckled, nagged, convinced, persuaded a friend to listen to Upper Middlebrow. If you can prove that to our satisfaction, we'll accept affidavits if they are notarized. We will enter you in that drawing, and you can get this wonderful Bluetooth. Quick reminder, everybody, we are wrapping up. Chris and I are writers, we're editors, we're producers, and we are guns for hire. We would love to help you realize your vision for your writing or radio project. And you can learn more about that and how to get in touch with us at our respective websites, chrisbag.com and jessedukes.com.
Ooh, is yours live?
It's live. Yeah, I revamped it.
Nice.
Yeah.
I'm very excited.
Yeah, check it out. Oh, would you like to give me some feedback on it?
Of course, on air.
You're very good at not right now, later, some other time. You're very good at giving feedback. Normally I would offer you some money, but perhaps I could give you some feedback on yours and we could do a trade.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
I'm role modeling hiring you as a editorial. Oh, Chris, would you like to give me some feedback on that? I will give you $2,000 to look at it and give me some feedback.
Sold. Well, I think unless we have any other stuff, we sort of talked through what's coming up. We are Upper Middlebrow is a Small Point production. Chris Bagg and Jesse Dukes are the live stream wranglers. Our music, when we play it, is by Jesse Dukes and Ben Pajak. I do most of the design, though that is a shared job between me and Jesse, and you can find out more about us at uppermiddlebrow.com.
I actually typed credits for you to read into the rundown, but you went bareback.
Okay.
And you did great. That's it, everybody. One other credit I will add to that is Chris Bagg was the one who figured out the technical production of tonight's live episode, and it was also his idea. So you have him to thank for this madness. Thank you all so much for joining us. We're going to shut down the live show now. That's it. There's nothing else. We don't have a Marvel cameo at the end. There's nothing. You can go away now. There's nothing left.
And we're going to shift back
Goodbye.
to our starting stream. It won't actually be coming up anymore, but it will definitely silence things so Jesse and I can talk offline.
Debrief.
Though a hot mic, every mic is a hot mic.
Crazy, give me your answer.